What's up, Mike? How you doing?
What's up, Phil? I'm doing well, buddy.
You're number 7 of the Eating Elephants podcast.
This is awesome.
Yeah, Eating Elephants Ministry, and this is the podcast version.
I love it.
Do you know the phrase, how do you eat an elephant?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
One bite at a time. Yeah.
I like what you're doing.
So it's just talking about having a conversation, finding a way that we can solve a problem or an elephant by taking a small bite, maybe a bigger bite. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what's going to happen, you know, what we talk about. So, but it's mainly just making sure that our faith has some action behind it, that we do something about whatever is going on in people's lives or some kind of cause or something.
Absolutely.
You know, so it doesn't have to be something for you personally. You know, I know you're not here for a long time, right? You have to go back up?
Yeah, I go back on Saturday.
On Saturday? Okay. Yeah, so so we understand that, but maybe something we discuss, we'll try and find something to attack.
Who knows? Maybe I do good enough I come back. You know what I
Maybe.
mean? I come back.
Maybe. So
two.
we know each other from Reach,
Yes.
which was my first run-in with doing ministry. And that was the young adult group. And you were kind of like, I don't know, it was just like, it was you of one of like 5 people that would show up to that thing, dude.
I love that. Dude, that was the best. You made an impact. Definitely don't question what you did because, again, I still remember so much about Reach, and it was such a fun group. I mean, we were up in like the attic of the church at the time.
Oh,
that's why they called it Reach. You had to reach up to find us.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you had to climb up 3 floors of stairs in like this back closet area, it felt like.
Yeah.
And it was above the baptistry.
Yeah.
And the ceiling was low, like the ceiling was lower because we were that close to the roof. And it was like, yeah. I remember walking somebody up there and they got nervous because of the way up there. It felt like, I hope there's other people up here and he's not just leading me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Josh took me up there the first time, and I was thinking the same thing. I've known Josh my whole life. I was like, is this the moment where our friendship takes a turn?
Yeah. Yeah. But it was cool, man. I got to cut my teeth there a little bit on just speaking in front of people.
You were just either wrapping up college or had been graduated for just a year or two or something like that, right? Because you went to Florida Southern, not to put your business out there.
No. I was at Polk State while I was at Reach, and then I transferred over to Southeastern.
That's what it was.
And I was cleaning up on Southeastern's end. Like that was when I was doing Reach. I was at Southeastern my last 2 years there. So
that was really incredible. I'm happy to be a part of this for that reason. I'm like, man, if you're still in ministry, I'm sure you've definitely sharpened your pencil and gotten even better over the years, I would imagine.
Yeah, I guess so, man. I mean, I got better to a certain extent, and then there was a lot of just realizing that it was limiting, and maybe this isn't for me, you know. And so, I think this is what I've been wanting to do, where it's kind of more, you know, finding something that is actually necessary to do, and then executing, and then doing that, you know, with people that I just come in contact with. It's not necessarily like only homeless people. You know, I haven't had a homeless. Yeah.
I love that I'm hearing when we say that statement. Yeah. It's not only homeless people, Mike. Thanks for wearing that.
Yeah. But you know, it's just bearing each other's burdens. That's the scripture we're kind of going off of, you know, and talking about how our faith has to have action. So that's what we're doing. And I think that in the church, it's much harder to follow the rules of like being political in the church, not politically correct, but like making sure you navigate people that you kind of want to upset sometimes, but you can't.
Absolutely. I had a pastor once tell me he did a sermon on taters. He was an Alabama pastor, and he literally brought a sack of potatoes to the top of the church. And he was like, I'm going to talk, and he set it up on the thing, you know what I mean, where the Bible and everything goes, up at the top of the pulpit. And he set it up there, and he's like, we're going to talk about taters today. And in the church, we have a lot of spectators.
Oh, my God.
And all these different abbreviations of words that had taters at the end. But his point was he was kind of checking the church, more or less, that, like, if you're going to be a member of the church, be an active member, be prepared to be gut checked from time to time. And you know, it's not like the church is here to criticize you, but at the same time, like, we're here to sometimes reflect and how can we be better?
Yeah.
You know, and that message from him always kind of stuck with me.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah, something like a physical illustration like that has always stuck with me as well. If I see that, like there was a sermon I did one time where I took my phone and I just smashed it while it was like working. You know, I was like, you know, this is all just stuff, and and like every kid just like quivered and like,
I bet
that's an iPhone. You know,
put it in their pocket.
Now I just upgraded.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, they didn't know that I didn't need that old one. You know, but yeah, it kind of shocked them a little bit. I know they remember that. You know, I know they got that in their head. So we did Reach together. And that was really cool. I had a couple good memories off of Reach. One being that was the first time I choked somebody out. Is at the we would go to Gators Dockside after.
Oh man, the crab dip.
And then
so good.
And we were doing trivia one night, and one of the guys at Reach was like, "That stuff doesn't work." We were watching the fights, and I was like, "It works, man." And I was just, I don't even know if I was a blue belt yet. Honestly, I think I was probably 2 years into jiu-jitsu. And he's like, "No, I would never tap." And I was like, "All right, let me get behind you real quick." And dude, guy never tapped, you know, but he went like I just put it on him, rear naked, and he was sitting on a stool in Gators Dockside. And I remember the trivia guy being like, "Hey, choking that guy, huh?" Like that, like he was reading trivia questions, and he didn't realize the guy was unconscious. I didn't realize it until I let him go, and he fell off the dang, yeah. So I caught him, and I was just like, dude, if anybody at the church finds out that I did this to somebody, so nobody ever did. Like everybody was cool about that. I don't know if you were there with us that night.
No, but I have heard that story.
Yeah.
Now that you're saying it, I think after this recording, you have to remind me the name of that person. I believe I know who it was. I think
Yeah.
It sounds very familiar story.
What was that guy's name? It was the what was that guy's name? The guy that like you couldn't go because he was there or whatever. What was his name again?
You're talking about Austin.
Austin. You remember
The
Austin?
goatee guy, right?
Yeah.
The black goatee guy,
Probably.
black hair, always wore black all the time. Is that-
Probably.
No.
Oh, no.
That's,
Oh, Austin.
That's Thomas.
I know
yeah.
Austin, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, choked him out. Yeah.
I didn't. Oh, wow. I don't think I was prepared for it to be Austin. Definitely
Man.
not.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I've been doing jiu-jitsu now. Well, since then. So that's on and off. I've been doing jiu-jitsu probably 9 years total. He's the only guy I've ever choked out off the mats.
Really?
Off the mat. Yeah, I've never choked somebody out on the mats. Everybody's always tapped. like I've never had to put somebody down. But he's the guy.
Wiry guy too, man. Dang, Phil.
Yeah, dude. I definitely double his size. You know, it's just like, all right, he thinks it doesn't work. You know, put him down, man. It was just kind of crazy. He had his doubts, but you know, I've been put out twice. But I've never actually put somebody else out, so or never had to really. But anyways, and then the other one, which we got to talk about today.
We have to talk about that. That was the greatest story.
This story is like one of those stories where if I'm at my lowest, man, I think about this sometimes to imagine, and it brings me out. It brings me out. Like I can't, no matter how down I am, if I think about this story, it brings me at least some kind of joy in the moment. So where was that? It was on
27
in Auburndale. Like,
yeah, you had a flat tire or
Yeah.
something, and you had texted me that morning or called me, and you're like, "Hey, Mike, I got this tire. Can you run me out to Davenport?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, of course. You know, whatever. I got time before work." And I drove a '99 Toyota Camry at the time. Went by the name of Cammy, and we drove all the way out there. And I remember on the way home, this is a lesson to any of your listeners for distracted driving. Absolutely. And there was an overpass right there, and
oh, dude,
there was a curb, and it literally was slanted in the shape of a ramp. And I drive by this curb all the time. They haven't fixed this thing. It's
Really?
the same way. Yeah, there's still tire
way.
marks up this thing. I don't know if it's all from me. I have to imagine I'm one of many. But the car, if you've ever seen Dukes of Hazzard, there's a timeline age. But
Yeah.
it was the most Dukes of Hazzard moment. I was waving at you because we've now gotten your car repaired.
Dude, I remember like I was worried about the donut not like working well on my car because the lug nuts had a key to them. I had like these special rims on the Honda Civic I was riding in.
Oh yeah, VTEC baby.
So it's like the lug nuts had a special key and it didn't go all the way to the donut. So I was worried like maybe this will wobble I'm like concerned about it. So I was like, hey, ride next to me for a second and tell me it's all good, dude. And so I just remember your face like this, out the window like this. And dude, it's like you went.
Oh my gosh, we went on 2 wheels.
Yeah, you did.
That's
dude.
what happened. The whole passenger side of the car is on 2 wheels. My hand is on my passenger side door handle. And with one hand, the balancing act is happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I went the full overpass. I told my wife I definitely made over the full thing.
Dude, an exorbitant amount of time being on 2 wheels. Yeah, dude. Yeah, you were balancing a little bit, like twin style. Like, yeah, it was crazy.
It felt so close to Dukes of Hazzard pulling out of a barn. I just never envisioned it would be in a Camry. And it landed, and then you pulled up right beside me and were trying to hold your giggles down to check on me. And I think we even pulled over briefly. I was like, pull over. We were just dying laughing, and we're like, because we kept going. Yeah. We just kept going. I
remember when you landed, I could see your head hitting the roof, and you know, I was there like, oh my God, like seeing if you're knocked out or not. And then once you started,
I still went to work.
Yeah, once you started driving, I called you, and I was like, hey, and you go, bro. I lost it at that point. He was like, bro. And then we started talking, you know, because like we started talking about God, like being in the moment. Like,
dude,
he helped me so.
He was watching.
You were so scared. It was just the amount, the hardness that you hit your head. I thought maybe he's knocked out up there. And
that was so crazy. The car goes up on 2 wheels over the overpass, came down.
Yeah.
And you pulled up beside me. We thumbs up. We're laughing incredibly hard. Even when you called me, I'm like, tell me you saw that.
Yeah.
And he's like, you were like, dude, how could I not?
Yeah.
You're just on 2 wheels.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it was insane.
To this day, when I tell other people that story,
well, it really happened.
They do not believe me.
This is the confirmation. Okay. Yeah. And honestly, man, thinking about your head bouncing off that dang roof, I'm telling you, man, it'd be like my worst days, man. I think like that just comes into my mind. And I'm just like, dadgummit, Mike, how did that happen? It is the fact that your face was like this to me, and then like, dude, you just started like.
It looked so coordinated, as if we had planned. That was YouTube possible before YouTube was a thing.
Gosh.
If we had captured that on a dash cam.
Yeah, and every overpass, they have it where it's like a straight wall, but this one has a ramp up to the top wall. So you hit that ramp and just rode it, dude. Like, oh, man.
It was so what appeared to be coordinated. And it was absolutely not. And to this day, I'm very thankful that I drove a car, because my head, if I would have been in a Tahoe or something, it'd have been dunzo. Wouldn't have happened. But
you hit down so hard, man.
And that car came down, and I went to work, man, and I just like casually gosh, you're not gonna believe what happened on the way here.
Oh man, and I was so bummed out. Like I had my flat tire, you know, and that car was just giving me so many problems. But dude, after that, it was just kind of like I laughed the whole way home. I think I laughed that whole day. It was just one of those things.
Well, and you hit me up over the summer about that as well. And it was so funny because I don't think it's always ironic, right? You know, but I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before I must have been having a moment where I needed to laugh, because that hit my brain. I was telling my wife, I was like, I don't know if I ever told you, but I really did. She's rolling her eyes at me because sometimes I exaggerated. She knows just for storytelling. And you had messaged me, and I immediately was like, this guy's in church. He's a pastor. He wouldn't lie. Look, I didn't write him first, and he said this. It really happened.
Gosh, man.
Oh, what a memory.
That was such a fond moment in my life, just to be able to see that happen so perfectly. So perfectly, man. All right, so after that, I guess Reach kind of fell off. I don't really remember what happened to it, really.
It did. It kind of, it fizzled out a little bit. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, God moves around in different ways and stuff.
Yeah.
It stuck around. I know you had moved on to the next journey and venture of your life. And I'd stuck around with some of the church members. We tried to elevate it a little bit. We had gotten a different kind of crowd in there. We managed to get the numbers back up a little bit. And then I was really enjoying it. And then, not to put anybody down, but, you know, I eventually felt confident enough to speak a little bit. I've never
nice.
Never wanted to be a minister or like a main leader, but I have done some like guest speaking spots at sermons in churches. I get it. I'm a little rough around the edges, so not full time, but I'm a good step in guy. And I spoke to the youth group there one time, and I'm not particular on the Bible, look, as long as the Bible, that's a book for me, right? That's what the song says. So this older gentleman in the back of the church stood up and interrupted my sermon.
No.
Because he's like, your Bible doesn't... I think Antonio might have even been there, too. I can't remember if he was still in the youth group or not.
Who do you think it was, Phil?
I know who it was. You don't need to say his name.
He stood up in the back of the church, and he goes, my Bible doesn't say that. What are you telling these people?
Oh, gosh.
And it was like the youth group was a pretty large... They had a large crowd in there. Like they could get like 30, 50 head in there on a Wednesday night. And I turns ghost white, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really started questioning the Bible I had. Meanwhile, my grandmother bought this for me a couple years ago. It's got my name on it. But I was, little did I know, in a Baptist church, they traditionally like the King James Version. Or New King James even. Really? I was preaching out of NIV that time, and it was not well received by that older gentleman, but the words were easier for me to digest, so my hope was for the youth. Anyways, not too bad. He meant well, but it was hilarious in retrospect.
Wow, dude. Yeah, but what the heck, man? Yeah, you gonna step up on somebody's first sermon?
Yeah, I was like I was like, okay, guys, don't do bad things. And from that moment on, I was a little turned off by that specific group or that specific church. And we stuck around. I really liked the guy who came behind you, as we all know, Jordan. Big teddy bear. Yeah. I really, really love him. He had such a great spirit, and the guy's optimism is uncomparable to anybody else.
Oh, yeah. Almost. Yeah, I was in a band with him, and he's like, here we go. We're going to blow up. And I'm like, dude, we had one person show up to the show, dude. What are you talking about?
But you need somebody like that on the team, and I definitely took that even a little bit from him in life. I've been told before, like, Mike, the building's on fire kind of thing. And I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, But, so I definitely think that, like, my time there was great. But the group did. It kind of, even after that, everybody had to move on. That's the only part with the young adult group, right? Is like you're in that phase where you've grown up knowing maybe the youth, if you were raised in the church. You're maybe a member of a young adult group, similar to Reach. And, life hits you. Maybe there's a job opportunity that comes out of state. Not everybody wanted to leave, or maybe family stuff happened and they have to go take care of grandma. And, and it's really hard, or it can be challenging, I would say, to kind of maintain that transition. Because
you're absolutely right. That's like a section that's really hard to grow in a church because of all the transition that happens.
Yeah. So you want to, I feel like, again, I'm not even active in a church in New Jersey right now, but I feel like you want to make the biggest impact you can or impression on those people while you have them.
Right.
Because like sometimes as well, maybe on this spring break, somebody like yourself is bringing a friend from your college to come up, and while that person's in town, you might only get to see that person one time, maybe twice. So like I really like young adult groups though, because like I said, Reach was awesome, man. Like I had preached in Baptist churches when my first sermon I ever did, I was 15. And I did it in a very Baptist church in Eagle Lake, Florida, and
nice.
It was really cool. They gave me the chance to do it and speak in the big church, as they always say.
Oh, snap,
and,
really?
Yeah.
That's a big spot, too.
Yeah, it was a big spot, and it was the first time I realized, like, your words can have an impression on you and on other people, and, we all get told when you're kids, like, you have a gift, and it's just a matter of when you can identify what that gift is, and I think at that age, I still remember, I had this lady approach me after the sermon, and I did a whole sermon about idols in our life and false idols in our life, and anything but God, and preached out of Ephesians, I think it was. And
whoa, my Bible doesn't say that in Ephesians.
Yeah. We don't talk about gold cows in Ephesians. So, but this lady approached me, to get to the point of the story. This lady approached me that was like definitely over 55 and like was in tears, and was just like, that was exactly what I needed to hear. And she started tearing up talking to me, and 15, you don't know how to receive that, anything besides good job. And I was, I don't think I understood the magnitude of it then, but the memory stuck with me. And then as I got older and matured more, I later realized, like, okay, maybe my superpower is talking to people and just engaging and listening. And I don't know, maybe they put you in the right place, the right time, that whole thing, Jeremiah 29:11 and all that.
There you go.
So
yeah. Well, that's interesting. So you never felt the calling to kind of pursue that as a main thing, but it's like, hey, if somebody gives me a mic and I need to step in.
Yeah, because I like to have some awareness. That's kind of important to me. It's still something I'm growing in, but I like to have some awareness, and I have a lot of respect for that role. My uncle was he's still an active pastor at his church in Pennsylvania, and then my grandfather on my mom's side was a pastor in South Florida as well at his church. So like I had a lot of respect for what that role carries, and maybe I put it on too much of a pedestal, to be fair.
Gotcha.
And I never saw myself as the guy who could. I saw myself as a guy who I knew was going to have some problems in life. That wonderful superpower I was just mentioning can get you in a lot of trouble as well. So, having said that, I just never felt like I was pure enough or clean enough to really stand in those shoes, because I didn't want to be a hypocrite, right? And we hear that word in church a lot, or can if you're in a Baptist church sometimes growing up. You don't want to be that, and that was always my fear. Was I don't know that I could hold myself to the same standards if I was a pastor that I would expect out of a pastor. And
gotcha.
I didn't want to make a mockery out of the role. So, but I loved being a fill-in guy. I loved being supportive. I loved being healed by the church. It was awesome. I was brought up in the church, like started out in Kiwanis. So, I was raised in a godly house. So I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I never felt like I'm the guy who's going to step in and be the leader of a church. I don't know. I don't know why. I've been asked that question several times. Like, maybe I was just scared, to be honest with you. Who knows?
It is intimidating.
Yeah.
It is super intimidating. My first sermon was in big church as well. And it was just like, I remember sitting down with the pastor and saying, like, what do I say? And he's like, you just say it whatever God gives you. And I'm like, hey, man, I don't hear nothing.
And he was a well-known pastor at that church, too. Still is.
Hey, I need to get some direction here. And he's like, whatever God lays on your heart. And that's kind of a scary thing to think that, like you go to a sales job or a tech job or something, you got some PowerPoints and stuff. You got like information to go to.
That you can lean on.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
And then for my first one, a guy's telling me like, hey, whatever comes to you from the creator of the universe.
Yeah, it'll come to you.
Just make sure that you tap into that. It was just kind of, man, I think somebody counted it, and I got all nervous, and I said I love this church a bunch of times. I think it was like 64 times in the sermon I said I love this church. That was like my fallback line, like, we just have a lot of struggles, and I love this church, so we just got to get through this because I love this church. Like, that was what I was saying, man.
That was a comfort line.
Dude, people started laughing, like, about every time I said it while I was in the sermon. and then I remember I crushed on a joke that was not meant to be a joke. Like, I was saying, like, could you guys imagine if what if I bought my girlfriend flowers? Now, I don't have a girlfriend, but my imaginary girlfriend. And dude, the whole church was like, ha, 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 like almost to a point where I was like, dang, bro, like, you don't think I can pull girls or something? Like, my ego was like hammered right there in front of it was 200 people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a big church too. You did it at Florida or in Bartow.
And it was Youth Emphasis Sunday, but it was like, dude, there's just more people were there than ever on a Sunday night. Like,
there's a lot of
So I appreciate the support, but I wish it was, it is what it is.
Hey,
man.
but everybody walked out of there knowing you're a man of love and you love the church.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, dude. I got laughed at. But, like, people were just like sitting there going like, dang, man. So you really like it here, huh?
I love it.
Did I say that a lot? Because it's all adrenaline.
Oh, absolutely.
There's not a thought process up there. It's a stream of consciousness of whatever comes to my brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because God's laying it on your heart, man.
Yeah. All right, you better lay it, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And that was just such a wild time. And then at Reach, I had a couple sermons where I'd get pumped up. I started feeling myself a little bit.
Yeah.
There was one that I walked out of the service on whoever was there. There was like a small crowd that night. I don't think you were there, but that was one of those moments where I was like, I'm gonna go tell somebody about Jesus. And I just left. Yeah.
I totally believe that.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the people in the crowd said, then go. And I was like, all right.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, bet. Yeah. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I left the crowd. I don't know what they did after that. I kind of checked in with them the next week, like, hey, what'd you all do after nobody prayed and the pastor just left? Like, just not. That's the thing. Like, you get into that groove. You're in sales. Like, you know, being able to kind of calm down and realize your next move ahead of time.
Yeah.
That takes time.
Yeah.
And I did not have that for a long time in preaching, to where I could really settle down. So it got weird. Were you there on like that one night where I don't know if you were there that night that we like had that like Holy Spirit movement kind of stuff, and like people were like speaking in tongues and stuff like that. You remember that?
No.
Okay, that's another story for another day. Then I thought you were there, but that was pretty crazy being in a Baptist church and hearing.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah,
because that's normally a faux pas in the Baptist church.
Yeah. But that was pretty wild. But I just couldn't remember if you were there or not. So
what's your thoughts on that, by the way? I know this is your show, and here I am asking you questions.
Yeah, I think there's a debate on whether it's just other languages or a heavenly language. I think that's a good debate to be had.
I mean, and I'll tell you, I'll come right out and say it to drive my own narrative. Look at that. Gosh, what a salesperson. So I was raised in a Pentecostal church, but I never knew the difference. I just knew that, if I'm being blunt, I knew the music was really bumping at a Pentecostal church, and it was a little bit more hymnally at the Baptist churches that I grew up in. So I always favored the Pentecostal churches. I really get into the praise and worship. I could do a whole church session on just praise and worship, 60 minutes. I love that. I get everything I need out of it, chill bumps and stuff. And to me, even growing up in a Pentecostal church, it's a little off-putting, right? I know any person under 18 is absolutely going, yeah, it can be off-putting, if you don't know, or they should feel that way. And but I later, as I matured, I kind of felt of it as like, look, man, if that makes you feel closer to God, then do what you got to do. I mean, in the sense, like, I always use the comparison. If you told me that, like, I need to get up and run around, just like you did, walk right out of that church because that's what you needed to do, then walk right out of that church, man. If you're telling me running around the church 6 times, that's not what Pentecostal people do. But I mean that in all sincerity. Then to feel closer to God, then go do it. I mean, people have climbed mountains to find themselves, right? That yourself ain't at the top of Everest, I can tell you that. But maybe that journey along the way, to get there or whatever, it helps you. So my thought on tongues has always been, it's not my cup of tea necessarily, but for those that are sipping from it, I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think it's their relationship, their business.
Yeah, I think it's weird whenever I think it goes over the line to say you have to speak in tongues to be considered saved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That definitely goes over the line.
That's way too much. And where's that written down exactly? That kind of explains that. I mean, you don't really see any of the moments where like everybody, all the apostles are going out and doing that, all the disciples are doing that. I mean, there is a moment where the upper room and that kind of thing where tongues of fire, sure, but as far as like consistently throughout the Bible that's happening, I mean, I would just think that there would be more of an emphasis on it if that was required, where Timothy's, or Paul's writing all these things and saying like, hey, make sure you're speaking in tongues or something. It's just like, it's not mentioned enough to merit that kind of importance.
Sure.
First of all, but then I think a lot of it's faked in a certain amount where, like, not all the gifts are given out to everybody. You don't get everything.
I would agree.
And so the gift of tongues, if it is something that's given out, it's not everybody in the church sitting up there saying some stuff. It's like a certain amount, and then there's got to be. It does seem like there's an order to it where there's no point in speaking in tongues if nobody can tell you what they're saying.
Correct. I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
I've seen that in some churches where it's almost being translated to a degree where somebody in there is prophesizing a little bit, and listening. And then I've seen other churches where, to be honest, like I'll call a spade, it felt like babble to some, from others. And again, you could feel that fakeness from some. And I could also feel the sincerity from others. It depends on that room, I feel like, and on those people in there, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's easily faked. That's the thing. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, hey, stop them and be like, you're saying Coca-Cola backward, Coca-Cola over and over again, or whatever the jokes are, right? It's like, I bought a Honda, should have bought a Hyundai. I bought a Honda, shit about a Hyundai. I bought a Honda, shit about a Hyundai. Like that's like
That's clever. I never heard that.
C-O-L-A. It's just cola. You just spell Coca-Cola or whatever. C-O-C-A. Wow. But it's like, am I speaking in tongues? Heck no, I'm not. I'm not. It's like one of those jokes that they make. But I think when it does happen, and I've heard people that I feel like I've vetted on knowing that they're not lying. You know, that have said some stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And I prayed. That was one of those things that I prayed for a lot when I was first kind of coming up in the faith. Is like, hey man, I want to talk in this weird stuff that
I want to do the language.
Yeah. But no, it's never happened for me. And what's strange is some of my Christian brothers would say that I'm not saved because that hasn't happened for me.
I hate to hear that.
But it's a strange thing to have that dividing line on something that's just one of the gifts, but it's like, it's almost seen as also, Paul's talking about, what's that verse where he says, I could speak in tongues all day or whatever, like I can speak in tongues more than anybody, but what good is it? He's just kind of downplaying it as far as like, it's not the biggest thing. Like it doesn't do much for the kingdom.
Yeah.
It's cool for you guys, sure, but I mean, if nobody understands it, what does it do for you if you walk by some homeless guy saying blah 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 blah, blah that doesn't help you. But if you go in the church and you hear the same blah 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 blah, blah, does that help you? No,
exactly.
It's the same thing. So it's like, I just don't think that should be and that bothers me, man. That the church is divided on something like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I used to refer to myself as being proud Baptist-costal.
Yeah.
I would tell people, because, I mean, I've made some of the best friends I ever made in a Baptist church. Not to say I didn't at Pentecostal, but again, I love music. I'm terrible at rhythm and instruments and all things combined, but I really, really get a lot out of that when it comes to church. To me, that's where I always found, I could always feel the presence the most, if you want to dare to say. Was through praise and worship. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the church, but I hated that there was even a divide between the two for that reason. I mean, tomato, right? At the end of the day, if you're after the big guy, that's what I want you to be. That's where I want all heads pointed, but I understand that that's bigger than me and things like that. But I always just hated there was a divide.
Yeah.
To hear that people are going to church in general made me feel good.
It's disappointing. And, there's just a lot of arguments. There's a lot of division that I don't think merits. I know they say, oh, we're still one church, okay? But I don't see many Methodist guys hanging out with the Baptist guys and the Presbyterians hanging out with the Pentecost. Like there's certain churches right now where it's like, oh, if you don't believe that God saves through predestination or having those people chosen beforehand, then you can't preach at our church. Mm-hmm. That's strange to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like the qualifications for being a pastor are written out in the Bible of like
pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
right?
Of like husband of one wife, like handling his life well. It's not like, all right, I get sound teaching, sure, but not like our specific teaching, our version. Like,
we have a syllabus here at the church.
And so I know they try and act like we're all cool together.
Sure.
But I don't see that happening because you have guys pulling up on people's front doors, man.
Yeah.
I mean, here in Lakeland, like when I drive down to Edgewood in Lakeland, there's 4 churches on Edgewood on one street, and it's just kind of like, what are we doing? And then there's like 2 Baptist churches on the same block. That's strange. I'm like, what did you think it wasn't covered?
Yeah.
Like you think we didn't have this area locked down?
Yeah.
I mean, I know Lake's Church or Church at the Mall used to be, and they got Epic Church across the road. They're like looking at each other.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of strange to me that if we're really on the same page, then what are we doing setting up in each other's parking lots?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I like to think there's there's a movie opportunity right there, man. 2 pastors dueling it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like giving each other the stink eye. Huh? Oh, you're starting at 10:30 this week, huh? I'm at 11. I see what you're doing, rounding them up early.
Yeah, you got that verse up? I'm sorry. So, yeah. So, okay, so, you're pulling up this one here, Tony. A pastor must be devoted to his wife, one woman, man. Pastor's children must be in submission, though not perfect. Keep going down, brother. Yeah, so a pastor must be humble, must be gentle, must be sober, peaceful, self-controlled, lover of good, Not greedy. Wow. Kind of missed that one on some of these guys, huh? Upright, holy, able to teach, spiritually mature, respectable, example of the flock. All right, so does it say Calvinist in there? I don't think so. You know?
Hey, those guys that got jets, they need those to deliver the word faster.
Those are a whole nother deal. Yeah, tube full of demons or whatever, that guy. Yeah, so just, man, I really don't like it. And there's a lot of things, like we had his brother on, Justin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we were talking about the food bank stuff, and we're shooting a video where we're going to go to different food banks and see if they like provide a decent amount of nutrition for poor people, or if it's just like filler kind of stuff where it's like you'll survive on this.
Oh, he's perfect for that. He's a nutrition guy.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we're using his giftings, you know, to kind of.
That's cool.
But now that and then I'm thinking like, all right, but a lot of churches have food banks, and wouldn't it just be easier if we all worked together and had like City of Lakeland Food Bank?
Yeah, provided by all of these collective, the church collective, if you will, the county church collective. Or
and
the
then,
city church.
me and Jessica could go there and analyze, the amount of protein or the amount of, whatever nutrients you get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, what we're having to do is go into individual churches and being like, well, this one stinks and that one stinks. It's like, but how are we going to get them all on the same page when they're not on the same page together anyways?
No, I mean, man, I definitely don't want to dip on that other episode, but whoever hasn't listened to it should check it out. That guy knows what he's talking about. And if he's giving it to you for free, get it, because he's not cheap. And to be honest, I mean, that's something, I know him very well, and that's something my wife and I talk about a lot of times now that we're pretty into fitness ourselves, and just walking around the grocery store, right? Like when you think of a food drive, especially around the holidays, like walk around the grocery store and whatever's on sale is not usually what's good for you. And it's something you start to notice over time. And I grew up in a family where 7 kids, like we didn't really have a choice. You bought what was on sale because that's what we can get.
Yeah.
But I later found out Twinkies aren't good for you, and neither is, even some of these processed foods that advertise themselves as high protein and all that stuff. I mean, most of the time, is it really good for you? Are you really getting the protein for you? Drink milk, they say, and there's like 46 grams of sugar in like 1 cup of milk, man.
What?
Like there's a lot of sugar in milk, dude, like just naturally. My wife got so mad at me the other day because she's like, you told me it was added. But anyways, either way, there's a lot of sugar in milk. They don't tell you in normal milk. But if you buy a milk like Fairlife, for example, removes the lactose, and it's only, it's a lot less sugar, let's just say. You cut it almost in a third. And now you're actually getting protein with each cup of milk. You know what I mean? And it actually benefits you a lot more. Whereas a standard half gallon of milk or a gallon of milk, it's got all that sugar in there, but little to no protein you're actually getting. So it's just something small. But again, like those small tweaks are what make big changes in your life.
Yeah. We were really talking about like how if we're feeding the poor people junk, then or not the correct nutrition, then it's going to be more health problems. More health problems means less money. Less money means more poor people. It's kind of the cycle of how that goes.
And how do we stop that cycle from keep spinning,
Yeah. So, but it just kind of points to a weakness. And I'm not just talking about my city. I'm talking about, at least in the West. I don't really know many other church contexts. I'm not a well-traveled guy. So, but over here, it just kind of seems like we stress so much of autonomy where it's like, nobody's coming in and telling the pastor what he can preach and what he can't, that we've kind of removed ourselves from like the Catholic structure of, having bishops and whatever, and having one guy at the top with the Pope and stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's less organization in that sense, less control, sure, like less manipulation of the churches, sure, but then at the same time, less opportunity, less infrastructure to cooperate.
Yeah, the one thing the Catholics definitely have going for them, that is like there is some sense of at least right, wrong, or indifferent, like it or love it. There is a sense of order and organization and a flow there, so to speak. My grandmother was Methodist growing up. I never put that together. I just thought it was a different kind of church, and I'd rather go to my church. But my grandmother was Methodist, and she showed me a lot too. That like never knowing. One time their church always did the Christmas Eve services, for example. So that's when I would go to my grandma's church. My dad would say, we're going to go. My grandmother's the treasurer, so we have to go and participate in grandma's church and stuff on Christmas Eve. Our churches don't do that. And I thought it was neat, but their churches are a bit more traditional, as you may know or may not know. And it was nothing was said different. It was just a little bit more King James version, if you will,
Yeah.
say, in Old English style. But, it was interesting, and I think there's something to be said for just learning how different people get closer to God in different ways. And again,
Yeah.
and this is a heavy podcast.
Well,
real
I mean,
quick,
it's
bro.
like,
I like that. But it's
I'm trying to, what I'm trying to do here is to give people ideas of how they could live out their faith and how they could be active with the words that they're hearing on Sundays, right? And so at the same time, I'm trying to promote church unity in a sense of like, this isn't a Baptist podcast. This is like anybody that says, I follow Jesus with my life. Well, if you say that, then good works need to follow,
Yeah.
and so that's what I'm doing. But it bothers me that there's going to be a limited amount that we can do whenever we're not all on the same page and cooperating,
Sure.
man. I mean, it's just like, all right, if we can't all kind of work together because we have different titles. I mean, I've sat there, dude, and I've said this before, but on the podcast, but it's just like I sat there and asked somebody like, hey, do you know Jesus Christ? Or, are you a Christian? And they're like, yeah. What denomination are you? And I was like, Baptist. And they're like, try Methodist. And just walked away from me like all rude and stuff. And I'm like,
off.
okay, buddy. That guy's like a tribal Methodist, dude. That guy will never enter another church. He's like, he couldn't even like appreciate that. If somebody came up and witnessed to me, I'd be like, heck yeah, dude. That's pretty dope. You had that courage,
Yeah.
man. Like, let's go. I try to encourage him, pray for him or whatever.
Sure.
But that guy was just like, you picked the wrong one. So it was just, it's strange how there's some separation there. And it's almost like, let's act like the elephant's not there. Let's act like we're not really actually divided. Like we're not all going to the same place. That's what bothers me too. It's like, you guys know we end up in the same congregation.
So that definitely ties in, like what I was saying earlier. That's where I get weird about the tongues thing. It's something I understand. It's much bigger, and I'm looking at it on a very top level here when I'm saying these comments, trying to make it minute. But at the end of the day, it's like, you're really going to allow that to divide us, or something silly like that, something small. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've never went to one of those churches where they're pulling out like, rattlesnakes or anything, but good for those guys. But, and I'm not Catholic, but I want to meet the Pope one day. I think it'd be awesome. I would still high five. But I get your point in that. I mean, like the end goal ultimately is the same, right? Do the right thing while you're here. Be kind to people while you're here if you can. And if you get the opportunity to give back along the way and influence the next person to maybe follow along your path and even be better, I mean, that's at least what I try to go for, is try to take some of those key goals out of the Bible and what I learned when I was in church, quite, like, no pun intended, religiously. But when I was in the church a lot more, I felt like I took away those things. And, while even now I'm not necessarily an active member of a church, my wife and I, got married by Antonio, and in the same sense that, like, we wanted a godly guy marrying us, and even better, I knew him, and he was an influence on my life. But, I feel like setting the example sometimes is the key goal. And, like, sometimes what I find most satisfying is when that's the last question people get to, if they ever even ask, like, oh, are you a Christian? And the reason I like that is because there is a stigma around Christians that I'm going to correct you every time you curse or you slip up in life or something like that. Maybe I will, but it'll be maybe a gentle nudge to the point where I'm not coming down on you or giving you lashings. But at the same time, there's some sense of accountability there. And I don't know. I found a lot of joy from being kind to people. And I realized that after doing that, you really start to gain their trust, and you see that genuine side. And the more they see how genuine you are, they eventually, it's come up every time. And somebody's going to ask you, well, how'd you get where you are?
Yeah.
And that's your opportunity to talk about you. And in that story, in my household at the very least, I'll speak for, we always reference, well, there's no way that God wasn't there. Like, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
Things have fell into place too many times. So the glory of God is absolutely given from my house to him day in and day out. We rely on him heavily.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're saying, like, even though you're not active in a church right now, like, you're still,
oh yeah,
you're still close. And I think that, there obviously being tied into a church is always beneficial.
It's amplifying for sure.
It's important. And I just, man, whenever you have the courage, it's like, I don't know, that's probably a gifting of yours, that you have the boldness to be able to mention it, that you have the boldness to be able to get there. Because I think a lot of people, they flake out whenever it comes to like actually breaking the barrier and saying like, this is part of my faith. That's why you're saying this, you know?
If I'm being honest, I think I owe it to him when those stories come about. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, look, buddy, all right, if you're not going to come to the big house on Wednesdays and Sundays, you're not going to donate your time on those other days, be a part of small groups, then I need you, at least while I'm giving you these gifts and I'm giving you these nice things in life, at least give your guy a mention here and there. I'm not trying to belittle JC, but, that's exactly how I look. I make it more casual. I mean, because that's what it is, right? Like, who can tell you? One thing that was interesting is my wife and I got together. She didn't really come from a praying household, and when there's been months in our lives where we prayed over dinner, out loud, verbally, and it was just her and I. And she was like, the way you pray is different than some of these other people. And I'm like, look, nobody can define what your relationship with God is like. And if talking to God is like talking to me or talking to Antonio, then good for you, man. That's what it's all about. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to talk to him. I think it's allowing yourself to be reflective and speak to him, and he knows everything anyway, right? That's what we all know that. So it's a matter of, if you can't be honest with him, then how are you going to speak genuinely that God has worked in your life? You know, so
why do you think things have kind of fallen off between the attendance and stuff? Like, what's the?
I'm going to use this lame, tired excuse that I'm sure a couple people are going to laugh about, but is always politics. It seems to boil down. The more I grew in any church, and I think that's another derivative of what kind of pushed me away from speaking or wanting to be a pastor. Was it always seemed to like we got away from the message and started focusing on attendance and how they were concerned about it. And I'm kind of like a, if we build it, they will come kind of thing. Let's stick to what we do, and as long as there's somebody making sure we're doing it the right way, no bad things, but we want to do the right thing, but like do it in our way. God gave you the gift to be yourself. If the moment you start adhering to a syllabus or some instructions that have worked for the last guy, that's great, but that doesn't mean you and the last guy are the exact same. And for me with the church, the politics just seemed to really get in the way, and I saw hate come out towards some of these other religions or people that were just doing things differently, whether it be in the Christian faith or, even if we had outsiders that, and I know nothing about the Jewish community, right? Besides the fact that Jesus was part of that group a little bit. And, where I live now, that's something I'm being challenged to learn a lot more about. In the Northeast, there's a substantial amount of temples near my home that I've never ever experienced. So we have Orthodox Jewish people in our community and just normal, like I use this term, but Adam Sandler Jewish people. There's, you know what I mean? Like just regular old folks. And, one thing I've learned is like, they're all just people, man. Catholic, Jewish, Methodist, Baptist, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, pick one. And it's not about that, man. It's, at the end of the day, like we're here on this earth for a very short time and it's not to be nasty to one another. And there's going to be times, but it's not what it's about. So that's how I saw things, and I just felt that I don't want to have to force that narrative within a church board or whatever to get stage time. Like, look, if it doesn't fit your bill, it doesn't fit your bill, but I'm going to go tell people at the gym. I think the Bible does say, one of the few verses I remember, I don't remember it by book or chapter, but my coach said it a million times, right? Where 2 or 3 are gathered, he's there, his presence can be there, right? So why can't that be in a Publix or at a gym or, so like there's something to be said about maybe not going to church, but if you can be still a disciple of his in public, and when you're out there, I mean, I've been at a bar, not necessarily proud to say it on this podcast, but I've been at a bar before and told a guy who's asked me my story, and I'm like, oh yeah, man, God was a part of it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm probably not the best example right now, but look, he was with the sinners and these other people, and I'm not intentionally putting myself there anymore, but I think that's more my story, is my church is out there sometimes, and that's beyond the walls. And I put myself in bad situations, I think, because of that, right? Like, you have to learn that, hey, that's hot. Maybe, don't touch the stove anymore. But I really have gotten a lot of joy out of again, especially being up there, being in the, I say up there, in the north, compared to being in Florida, just because it's my first time moving out of state, seeing that experience, and like, man, they like Southerners up there, and they like the way we talk, is what I always tell people. and you can really make an impact, man, just by being kind to people, and you'll be amazed how much people will just start opening up to you and asking you questions, and naturally and organically, which is what we all want, right? It comes up, and you know, again, I'm proud to say it. And I had an early mentor in sales that he impressed upon me that was one of his pillars of success, was just, you know, remain humble, because, you know, don't forget he gave it to you. He can take it away from you. And a lot of salespeople tend to forget that in my field. It's a high earning field, and a lot of people finally get their BMWs and Beamers and Mercedes and all that fun stuff, and they forget where they came from. And I've always tried to hang on to that pillar as tight as I could, because I've been in some very rough situations in life, and I hopefully will never have to go back.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, nice job getting there, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate
Congratulations. You know, just being, sometimes you got to take a second and look back, you know, and just kind of say, hey, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
So, and us guys, we don't really say good job to each other enough. So, hey, nice job, man.
I appreciate you, bro.
You know? You're married now. You got you're swole.
Thank you.
You got that going on. We'll talk about that in a second, but just to kind of discuss a little bit more about, I guess what I'm hearing you're saying is, like, you're more interested in the implementation of what you're learning and kind of or what you believe.
Yeah.
Rather than let's all join together and discuss it.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, man, I think that's kind of that's a major driving point of what I'm trying to do here, is that y'all can be whatever y'all want on the sign.
Sure.
Right? But when it comes to actually implementing, when it comes to actually doing good works, like, that could be unifying.
Yeah.
Because you start realizing, all right, if God wants me to, like, help the homeless in my community, or to help the people, you know, the orphans or the widows or whatever it is, I'm only going to be able to do this much with, like, the bite of the elephant, right?
Yeah.
But if I can use all these other people with different church names on there that would cooperate with us, and, you know, we can all get on the same page,
yeah,
then suddenly our impact is bigger. And it's not like, oh, the Presbyterians did this.
Yes.
You know, it's like Christians did that.
Yeah.
You know? And so I would just think, like, at least in your situation, if you had just another brother or a sister out there in the faith that was just also, you know, talking to people about God and you know, talking about stories and stuff, it's like, that would interest you more to hang with that person than to go into a building that they pay for, that everybody's got to take donations to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And it's like, wouldn't we do better just saving that money and kind of saying, like, all right, after I help this person out, maybe I could, you know, help them with rent or electric, like go a step further rather than spend it on, you know, another setup. So
I had a good friend tell me once a quote, and it's totally unrelated. This guy was a rapper, but he told me straight. I was aspiring at the time, and he told me, you know, it was something so casual, but he checked me on some stuff unrelated to religion, but was like, "Don't talk about it, be about it," you know. And that line, much like you in that car on two wheels, it sticks with me. And anytime I catch myself really starting to get a little lazy, or even telling somebody my story, I found a lot of accountability within that, because I start to, you know, remind myself of the bad times and the good times along the way, and what came of that. And that in and of itself humbles me and reminds me, that's right, yeah, I did. You know, I remember when the bank account, you open up your cell phone, you're like, oh, and you see red numbers all the time, and, you know, things just weren't going your way.
Yeah. I think that somebody in your situation, man, if you saw a church doing it, if you saw a church kind of going after it in your neighborhood, and maybe you were benefited by them, it would be all you needed to say, like, I'm going to give this one a try. You know? I'm going to give this, like, and then, so it's like, but if you don't see that, then there's no interest that's drawn. You think, all right, man, this is like, it's still kind of the same deal around here, you know? And it sucks, because there's a lot of people that are burned on the church for whatever reason. I mean, it doesn't sound like you're burned. It just sounds like you're just kind of like, you know, they kind of got caught up in debating or whatever. They wanted to, you know, be
I took the important stuff. Like, look, like people like you taught me about, and I'm not really into the whole, and it's okay. I'm just not the guy that was picked for it to be like knock on people's doors or anything like that. But one thing that I took away from that is that there's always an opportunity, and so what I started doing is, like most people, I don't like when I'm pumping my gas and people ask me for money. It's so annoying, like when homeless people approach you, or there's that time old tale of my car ran out down the road and, I just have this gas tank. If you could give me, is I started saying, hey, man, I'll be more than happy to give you whatever you want. I'd like to pray for you if you don't mind. That's my only contingency, is that I pray for you. And I've had people tell me, I'm not a Christian. I'm not here to save you. If I'm going to give you this, I need you to know who it came from, and it's not from me. I'm just a conduit, dude. Like, because if he didn't give it to me to then give to you at this very second, when you're alleging you need it most,
right?
Then and my wife, I've given people, I won't name numbers, but I've given people a lot of money in those at gas stations that I don't know, and I've gotten back in the car, and my wife or even my siblings have been in their car like, did you really, that they're going to go buy alcohol or cigarettes? I said, maybe they do, but at the end of the day, that conviction is on them. Right. That God put this in their life, and maybe that $20 is the money they need to get a hotel room and get cleaned up, get a job. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I mean, to your credit, man, I think you're doing it in the most effective way possible. Honestly, I didn't have any success going up and knocking on doors or going up to people, and that was just me kind of.
You got to try it.
Running my head into a wall, thinking this is. It's like you read, a little bit of the Bible, and you're like, yeah, let's go,
People have got to know about this, right?
And but now I'm a little more well-rounded. I'm trying to do more effective kind of ministry, and like what you're saying, what you're doing, building a relationship. I mean, that's how he did it. That's how the guys were going about it. So it's I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't really want to come off as somebody that's hating on the bride of Christ. Like, if somebody insulted my wife, I'd be pretty pissed at them. So it's like, I don't want to screw around and do that. I just kind of want to be a part of the unification, and trying to get people on the same, at least out of the pews. And then once they get out of the pews, they'll realize they need to be on the same page.
Look, and there's some good stuff. I mean, like the whole good part about the Bible is I'm not saying I can translate every word or dissect it as much as most, but there's like the core values within there are good things. Like, why wouldn't you want to do, like most of us and most of the people I feel like that aren't Christians, like, tell me you don't want to be nice to others. Tell me you don't want to forgive, tell me that it doesn't help you to believe in something. I like that, and I especially forgiveness, man. I mean, like, I've been burned enough, and sure, my wife tells me all the time I'm too gullible and I'm too nice to people, sometimes too forgiving, flexible, whatever. But at the same time, like, how are you really ever going to move on if you're not? I sound like Dr. Phil now, but if you don't forgive people and you don't let some of that stuff go, like you can't just harbor that, because eventually, your cup's going to filleth over with negative feelings and. Again, the Bible, just thinking on those core values of what comes out of it, that's helpful, man. That's good stuff. And to not have false idols. I think we all need to know that, right? I mean, especially as men. Look, I'm pretty outspoken about it. Like, I don't even have, like, TikTok or anything like that, just because I feel like, man, I had that thing for a month, and, like, you'd be amazed how that algorithm can dissect a male's brain. And that's where I'll leave that. And I didn't want that in my life. And I found that. And I'm not hating on anybody on TikTok, but I can tell you I'm not on TikTok because I felt like it was immediately a gateway to where I didn't want to be a part of that. I knew at the time I have an amazing woman that God put in my life, and there's no need for negative distractions, and I'll let you make your own inference. But it's just little things like that awareness. I wouldn't have never thought about that had I not grown up in a church and knew what it was like how God expects you to treat your wife and what level of commitment, again, that is. I mean, that's why I had a friend, ordain my wedding just as much. So there was not only a personal relationship, but also a godly one through that guy. Yeah. And it definitely meant a lot to us. I'm not kissing your rear just because you're here. We've told you that before, but it meant a huge.
So much, John.
It did. It meant a very great deal to us that he was a part of that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm happy that you're. You're at that situation where you're kind of in the flow of things and still understand where it all came from. You know, that's an awesome place to be. And so I guess when we first talked, or when we first knew each other in Reach, you were kind of a much less athletic man than you are now.
I was a much rounder man.
I mean, I always try and let the guests say it first. Justin said they called me Kung Fu Panda.
We did call him Kung Fu Panda. I can validate that statement, and he was.
I mean, yeah.
There's pictures of him in my parents' house in Kung Fu Panda mode, still to this day.
Nice, man. So what changed with you? I mean, because you're pretty swole now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and
man, you talk about the power of influence. Gosh, we're giving this guy too much credit on this podcast. But I had a friend of mine start 75 Hard. May or may not have been Justin.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I gave him a lot. He had some different demons, I think, that he was fighting. That's his business to share, not mine. But my point being, we all have our own. And I busted his chops through and true about 75 Hard. And I was like, dude, like, you know, just go to the gym. You don't need this. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, beating up on yourself or being angry or anything like that, or being stressed about if you don't take a picture or something like that, like your producer, and have to restart, you know.
Yeah.
But what I got to the point where I was like, you know what, dude, I'll do it. I'll do it, and I'll show you, like, it's not the end of the world. And I, to be honest, I should really reel that back. My wife was extremely lightweight. In 2019, she was 103 pounds, and I had a conversation, and boy, if that wasn't God helping me out navigate those words, because I could have, you know, she wasn't my wife at the time, she's my girlfriend, so I could have lost that real quick.
Yeah.
And I tried to turn it into a goal for her that I genuinely was concerned about her weight. And I said, you know, hey, you know, if this is something you want, I put a goal at the end of it in a year's time. And I said, you know, I'm more than happy to buy you a trainer for Christmas. And by the way, I'm not encouraging other men to go do that unless you're very solid. But my wife understood that her weight had gone down, and I'm very cheap. If you know me, I'm very frugal, and I like to look at it on my bank account, not spend it. And to make a long story short, I bought her a trainer. And to be fair to Justin, he had already used a trainer. And he had mentioned to me that his trainer had a spouse that was doing this longer than his specific person. So he got me linked up with her, and it was about $600 or $700, and for 3 months' time, I think it was. And it came with some of these food plans. And I told my wife, I said, well, if you're going to go, I might as well go, because at least then I can justify 2 for 1. And when she started going and cooking right, and if you're in a fitness household, like, if you've ever tried at least where like one of you is dieting and the other one is not, like, it is extremely combative, or can be, just because like it's always a difference of opinion where we eat. So I just jumped on the bandwagon with my wife originally, and I was like, hey, I'll help you. And we started at the Purple Fitness Palace, you know, Planet Fitness, and and it elevated from there, man. And like I kind of just fell in love with it. I started to see the results, and I started to know the impact. So about 6 months later is when, it was about June, she was seeing results. I was on the early stages of results. I felt like I was Hasselhoff in 6 months, and I was nowhere near it. Like, looking back, I get the memories on Facebook. I'm like, that guy thought he was swole. Like, he was way off beat. So, but at the same time, it was humbling in that own experience. And that's when I tested 75 Hard out. And again, I guess we can be like pretty transparent, right? I'm a partaker in the well, not right now, but at that point in my life, I was a heavy user of marijuana and weed or whatever. And so for me, when I did 75 Hard, I used it. There's a part of it, if you don't know, where they do no alcohol for the duration. And there, believe it or not, there's so many people, like when you read them off the 6 steps, a gallon of water and reading 10 pages of a book, people are like, okay, I can do that. You know, 2 workouts a day, separate, okay. But when you get to that no drinking part for 75 days, you'd be amazed how many people are like, no, never mind. I want nothing to do with it. I couldn't do it.
That's the sticking point. Okay.
Yeah, and Justin and I used to be pretty rowdy together back in the day, and we've been good friends for a long time. And again, I'd seen him aspire to do it. So for me and my wife, we added the extra value of, okay, we're going to add this extra step. Like, if you're going to be sober, again, much like being honest with yourself with God, it was the sense of like, we need to be honest with ourselves. We don't have a drinking concern at all. I can be sober with alcohol for 75 days. But can I do it with weed, right? I haven't done that in a long time. And we challenged ourselves to do it. And in that time, being truly sober for 75 days and sticking to a program and sticking to the steps. It's similar, and I don't want to be insulting because I don't have a degree, and I know both of you gentlemen do, but it's similar to college, right? I've heard college graduates at least express, like, sometimes it's not the degree itself, it's about the fact that you went somewhere, committed yourself, and did something in 4 years, right? Like, you showed up for class at the very least and passed. So for me, when I finished 75 hard and through that duration, man, I never read 10 pages of it. I finished like 2 or 3 books, and I was like, man, this is crazy. Look at me. I hadn't cracked open a book since science class, and I didn't do good in that. So it was really eye-opening to me that I'm pretty decent at this if I put my mind to it. So it showed me that I could accomplish something. So I continued to stick with it, and I've been doing the gym 4 to 6 days a week ever since, and I'm just married to it. And I got really blessed that my wife found that same growth. She accomplished her year-end goal like she wanted that year, and and it all, I dare say, worked out, but we trusted the process. And now, I've finished a half marathon. I've done like 12-week like cutting things, challenges to find definition, and I'm really dialing in. And then, proud to say now I'm really putting myself on this accountability level. But I'm hoping to start boxing at the early part of 2025, or at least start training to box. I think anybody who saw the recent Netflix fight is motivated to go out and do it, right? Any one of us can. So I want to take on Jake Paul. Yeah. There it is, official shout out. My gosh, that'd be so cool. But anyways, yeah, I mean, there's something about what I learned from that experience was there's something about setting a goal, really sticking to it, and being consistent. And to be honest, the gym and now my wife have been the most 2 consistent things I can say in the last 5-7 years that I've been doing. And I'm really really happy about that. And it made a difference. It made a difference for me at work. I feel better. I feel happier. It's easier for me to work out stress. I generally am just a short-tempered person sometimes. I'm aware of that. And the gym, I noticed when I went to the gym, I was able to find peace a little bit, and I got better.
Nice, man.
Just got better at it. And honestly, don't get me wrong, like the side benefits of all that outside of your head is, you do get a little you get pretty jacked over time, right? Like, I'm a big Arnold guy. I like the 6 tips of success that he puts out there. And I want to be strong. What I used to tell people was that if somebody's going to rob somebody, I at least want them to think twice before they pick me out of the line of people, right? So, which is not necessarily good advice, but it's honest.
Yeah, it's just one of those odd thoughts that you think about whenever it's just like, okay, well, another reason to do it, like make them second guess it or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, similar to Justin, we both played sports in school, both played football. I wrestled a little bit, and that's where we deviated. But but he did jiu-jitsu. So, I mean, tomato. But I don't know. It really helped. Everything I needed was it sounds so cliche, to go to the gym. Yeah. And it tests you there too, right? Like, there's demons that can step in front of you at the gym. There's opportunities in there to find shortcuts. I'm not big into those shortcuts. I don't like needles or pills or things like that. Yeah. And to be honest, like, when I was in my teenage years, man, I thought that like muscles were found in a capsule on a shelf. You just got to go to your local GNC. And I took testosterone pills and all of that stuff. I had failed attempts at fitness. Oh, really? Way before I found success. Way before. And proper dieting was a key in that. And macro tracking, and it's a lot of work, man, to get started. But once it's in your life and you start to see the changes, it all becomes worth it. I mean, it's very, I dare to say it's easy for somebody out there who's just getting started, but it's as easy as 30 minutes. Just go on a 30-minute walk.
You say somebody, but me and Tony are starting my first official 75 hard on January 1st.
So you going back after it? Is he going back after it with you?
He's going for it. Yeah, he does it every year on the 1st. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I do it every year. January 1st I start. I like starting my year off on hard.
75 hard. So just recap the 6. What so
Okay, so the 6 steps I know is no alcohol for 75 days, 10 pages of a book, 2 workouts, 45 minutes or longer, and they have to be at least 3 hours apart, I believe. And so you can't do like, oh, I'm going to go work out for an hour and a half. That doesn't work. And one of them has to be outside, and I can't tell you what a knucklehead I look like in Miami walking around with an umbrella, because that's where I was, and I had to do my outdoor workout, and I gambled on the weather and did it in the rain. But and then gallon of water a day, and I feel like I'm missing one. Right, take a picture of yourself.
Take a picture and then no cheat meals.
Oh yeah, no cheat meals.
Yeah, you got to stick to a diet.
And that's the other thing I liked about 75 Hard. I will really compliment them. As hard of a program as it is, nobody's telling you what book. Nobody's telling you. I mean, they're saying, don't pick a fictional book. You can be reading Harry Potter. But, you find a book that betters you. For me, I read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. Okay. I picked somebody who could talk like me, who I felt like I'd understand a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't really. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
I see that, John.
Yeah. I mean, he's an Austin guy, and I'm a Florida guy, but I was born in Texas, so I like to think we're cousins. And,
Gotcha.
My name starts with an M, so we're good.
Right.
And he, middle name is Matthew, actually. So that book was really easy to digest. Pick something like that. And then the food thing, I just tracked my macros. So, I didn't overcommit, and it felt achievable to me.
Okay.
Again, 75 days, man. It's not even half the year.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you feel like, once you started, when did you feel like, okay, this is what I'm in? Like, I'm fully committed now. I'm sure it takes a while.
It does. I mean, 75 was great, but again, that came 6 months into my fitness career, if you want to call that one. It's not a career, but it's timeline, journey, whichever. I really got committed, I think, at the end of 75 Hard, because at that point, I'm nearly 8-9 months in to the full year of going to the gym for the first time since a high school football or wrestling team. And again, this is 2019. I graduated 2011. So we're in 2020 now because it's the start of the new year when I started that. So we're almost to 2021. And I'm starting to see results. I'm starting to see a little chest movement, right? Fellas all know that if you're a Dwayne Johnson fan. And I'm starting to see some size. I'm starting to hit the end of the weight rack at the gym. And there was a picture, it popped up in my Facebook memories just the other day, and it was from 75. And for me, I was always shopping in the Husky section growing up. I was a square-bodied child and very heavy, right? And I got lazy because I hit my growth spurt when I was in 9th or 10th grade and got the attention of a pretty girl. And I was like, oh, this is what being, older is like now that I'm tall. Well, guess what? I still gained more weight when I was tall. We shouldn't curse, so I always half-butted it, you know what I mean, so to speak.
You can cuss on it.
Okay, my bad. Yeah, I half-assed it, and when I would get the peak of the result, just the tip, I would then quit, and is my point. The thing with fitness and a lot of things, and you'll see why just through the comparison why it's relevant, is the consistency. It was key to stay in there, to keep going, because believe me, that's just the beginning. Just shedding that 5-10 pounds that he or she wanted to lose out there is great. But, how can you build that 5-10 pounds back full of muscle, or keep challenging yourself?
Do you think you would have done it solo, or did you need somebody else to kind of go with you?
No. So I think in the beginning it helped. Absolutely. My wife and I going to the gym helped, but naturally her routine was more glute focused. Let's say women are, their strongest muscles are in their legs and their hips and all that good stuff. And then, every guy wants the big chest and working out, but we showed up together, but we didn't work out together. Only recently, this is the first year we've done it all year where we've done every single workout is exactly the same. My wife and I do the same workout together, no matter if it's me cutting or her focusing on legs or whatever. We do the exact same thing. And I will say it's for those out there that are married or engaged or within just in a serious relationship, point blank. It was incredibly helpful for our relationship too, because you don't realize why you're going to the gym. You're going for some objective physical reason initially. But then the benefits that come secondary, whether it be peace of mind, your blood pressure, I know some people go for. For me and my wife, now that we work out together, it's awesome, man. I'm now pushing my wife to be the best version of herself every day at the gym. You know,
awesome, man.
You get to coach each other and like you call each other out. It's really fun over time because you learn techniques, and you can be more aware, you know, of what you're, you know, hey, don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself. You know that. And me and her are very outspoken, and that translates to our marriage. You know, if I'm doing something that maybe she doesn't feel comfortable about or doesn't like, maybe just some of the habits I'm doing or whatever, then like she doesn't hesitate to speak up. And that's the kind of marriage I want. I want to, you know, she's there to make me better and I'm there to do the same for her, and we'll support each other along the way. And to me, that has been very helpful, but that's not everybody's cup of tea. I know some couples out there, you know, that they don't do that, but I will say going to the gym at least together at the same time, getting up, we're going to wake up together if you can. I know some people have kids and they can't, but even just you could still push each other if you're both participating and one of you's got to stay back and watch the baby and one of you's an evening person, fine. But like it helped, and we made it a priority. You have to make that a priority. That's your health is, you get one life, man, you know. And I always encourage people, go to your favorite restaurant in town, go to a Denny's. I was just at a diner across town today, and I'm not telling people to judge, but, you know, look at our previous generations, and there's always, you know, older folks in the restaurants and such, and, like, you know, there's a 60-year-old today, my point, isn't what a 60-year-old was 10 years ago because people are getting more fit. Like, I've worked out with guys that are 80 years old, you know, still hitting the weights, man. Like, it's impressive, like. And you're going to tell me that an 82-year-old, an 80-year-old has got more gumption, testosterone, whatever you're telling me you don't have in your body or your bloodstream, to show up for him or herself, and you can't. You know, I think it started gut-checking myself. There again, the accountability was another thing, and I'm still learning that. Because nobody wants to be wrong, you know. But it's been, and it continues to be very helpful to me to go to the gym.
Yeah,
I like it.
And having somebody else there, I mean, it's pretty vital at the start.
Yeah,
you know, at least starting out. Yeah,
and 75 is great for that, and it's a free program. I know that I'm hyping that up like I work for them. I don't, but that's an even more, you know, bigger testimony about that program. But it's very helpful, and you set the goals. So again, it's a you thing, and if you can't do it, then, you know, again, you're going to learn from that.
Okay, all right.
Your first time at it, though?
Yeah, it's my first time. I'm just trying to think of how to bite the elephant here, because it's like, now we got to do something. Now we got to get after it.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? So, but serving our community in a way. So I'm thinking what we can do, Tony, hop on the mic here. So what we'll do is, I think 20, do you want to do 20, Tony?
Yeah, we can do 20.
20 days. So we're doing 75 hard, and I was just thinking, you know, before the podcast, I was thinking, like, how are we going to incorporate this? But to serve the community, I think if we did our outdoor workouts as just a meeting up at Lake Hollingsworth to walk for our 45-minute out, you know, and if anybody else wants to show up for the accountability.
Oh, dude, you'd be amazed.
Just putting it out there and saying, like, hey, if anybody needs somebody else to walk with or making friends, whatever it is, you know.
I think that'd be great. Man, you're really good at that. That'd be good.
Well, yeah, just putting it out there as far as just being there so that somebody doesn't feel like they're doing it on their own, you know, that somebody else can walk with them. It's way easier to work out when you have somebody else to discuss things with and not think about, you know, your feet hurting or the workout itself, like just to have somebody else. I mean, me and Tony work out somewhat regularly together. And, you know, it's beneficial, especially like I suck at squats, you know, but he'll just tell me like, hey, yeah, it losing it here. It looks like your feet are about to fall off of your shoes right here. So that kind of thing.
He squats with running shoes, like Hoka's on.
Yeah.
I had to take them off and barefoot it. Yeah. So.
Oh, one of the, you know, what's that guy tell you about toes in the gym? Get a set of Vans, you know. Yeah. But no, you're right there.
So, but yeah, okay. Let's do. All right. You know what? Let's record this. And guys, for those listening, here's what we're gonna do, fitness-wise. We're gonna do 20 days, 5 days for 4 weeks. Monday through Friday. We're going to do 6 a.m. at Lake Hollingsworth. and we'll do a 10-minute Bible study because it's a Christian thing. So let's do a 10-minute Bible study. You can show up after the 10 minutes and still walk with us. It's not like you can't walk with us if you don't listen to the Bible or listen to the Bible study or whatever. But we'll meet on those bleachers. I think 6 a.m. is going to be the best. Yeah.
It's good
for everybody that can do it. So 6 a.m. and then 6:10 we'll start walking. And we'll do the first week, we'll do a mile. We'll start out small. Let's do the first week is a mile. Second week will be a mile and a half. Third week we'll do 2 miles, and then the fourth week we'll go the whole lake, which is what, 3 miles?
Yeah, I think it's just like 0.1 shy of 3 miles or something like that.
And we'll see if anybody wants to start their 75 hard with us. We'll do that. Okay, so when do most people quit their resolutions? When is that usually? We'll just
January 2nd, I think. For most people.
Yeah, there's a few schools of thoughts out here. So some say February
pulled up
1st. Yeah.
Let's see what they say here, just real quick. I want to know when to launch this.
Here, I'll put this over
for those out there that want to start the routine, that want to start the journey.
Yeah,
that Mike went on. I mean, you got to have somebody else at the start. So we're trying to be that for you guys. I hope you guys are open to it.
I can't read this. It's too far away.
Let's see here. Oh, no, you got the verified Quora over here. That's great. Thank you. What the heck, Tony? Get out of here. Get out of here. All right. I'm pretty sure it said February 1st, right?
Yeah, some said February 1st. Some said like second week of January.
Second week of January or February 1st? Which one do we have a better chance of it being warmer in the morning on February, or is it going to be cold?
I mean,
is life easy when you set a goal, man? Like sometimes it's going to be cold, bro. There's no choice. I ran a half marathon. It was 37 degrees a few weeks ago when we started running. You know?
All right. Let's do this, just so we're not interfering with anybody's New Year's resolutions, all right? And because we'll be, in 75 Hard, we'll be halfway through, so we'll have our stuff worked out, and then we're just switching our outside workout to do this with people.
Correct.
To do this walk.
Yeah, so February 1st.
And if you guys want to...
First Friday, or first Monday of February, I suppose.
First Monday of February is what?
That would be...
We got to look at these dates before we get after it, dude. Like,
I will tell you one thing. Just to quickly touch on. You'll find a sense of community.
Yeah,
you'll find a sense of community in that, and I think that's the big point. Is like you're going to build a relationship. It's not about the distance or exactly. It's the time spent. Right? I mean, one might argue, or at least for myself, I'm not here to take over. It's just the fact of I noticed that over time you eventually build a community of people, and like everybody's comfortable, and eventually.
Yeah,
people start opening up.
Here's the thing, Mike. We've recorded 7. You're their 7th one. We haven't posted one yet, so we have no idea how many people are going to see this. We got no idea of reach. So if nobody sees this and nobody shows up,
in the next week or two.
Yeah, we're posted next week. But if nobody sees this, then we're just doing our 75 hard together at the Lake Hollingsworth at 6 a.m.
Iron sharpens iron, baby.
I see the point now. Okay, now I'm getting
So if we fail and no one shows up and nobody sees this part of the podcast, or whatever, then,
fair enough.
Then we're still doing our thing. That's kind of the fallback. But we do want to be available for people out there that want to start with us. We want to serve. We want to take a bite of the elephant. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was thinking we could post some stuff on Facebook or something like that, posting little, new in Lakeland, what's there to do kind of thing. Like, hey, we're doing this 6 a.m. Lake Hollingsworth, Monday through Friday.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So posting things.
Yeah, and then if somebody wants to jog, or if somebody out there wants to do the Bible study and then do your own thing, I mean, you're welcome to come out there too. It's just we're gonna set the standards at a progressive of people that are starting from just starting.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not looking for the guys that are like Mike right now. This is those guys are already running the lake at 6 a.m. typically.
Yeah.
You're already out there. I mean, you went to the gym today probably, right?
I'm embarrassed to say, but gosh, you're such a godly man. I couldn't lie to you. I skipped this morning. I was totally supposed to go, but the turkey got me.
Gotcha.
The turkey got me.
But so let's do that. Let's do February 1st. Is that the Monday?
February 3rd, and then the last day is February 28th.
February 3rd to 28th, Monday through Friday. We're out there doing a walking group for anybody that wants to start out their journey to fitness. We gotta get out there. We gotta support each other. So if you're not a Christian, that's fine too. You can come out. I don't care. We're walking. There's nothing religious about this.
Yeah.
Besides the Bible study, I'd love to have you for the Bible study too. So, but anyways, let's do that. I think that might help some people out. I mean, what do you think?
I definitely think it would.
Okay.
I was just talking to my stepmom about this yesterday. I have some, I got plus size people in my family. Just because I go to the gym doesn't mean they all do. And I want this for people, but sometimes the bad side about getting strong is you do catch a lot of judgment when you're trying, and much like being a Christian, it's when you're further along in your faith and a newcomer, so to speak, it's very. Sometimes they can see it as like, well, of course it's easy for you, Phil. You went to church or you went to school for this, or they may perceive it as such without knowing your journey. So I usually tell people that when I'm talking to them about fitness, that, dude, if you can start out with 30, 40, that 45 minutes is powerful, man. If you can just wake up, go on a 45-minute walk. I'm not telling you to run. I used to take my dog, and I had no job when it. For part of that, I was just walking my dog for those 45 minutes. And you feel so good. I mean, really disconnect. I mean, play your tunes or what have you, but take the time, if you're a walker, to leave your phone in your pocket and talk to the person next to you, whether it's about the deals at Publix or, problems at work or what have you, but just talk and really try to disconnect during that time if you can.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of benefits. Even if you don't do it the rest of the day, that's fine. There's 24 hours in a day. I'm asking for, 45 minutes. Can you not just before the day even really takes off, just to dedicate to being in that moment, and that even made its way into my vows. Now that I'm saying that back, I did say that in my wedding vows. It being in the moment really matters. Yeah. To me, and I definitely would say I learned that from fitness. Just being disconnected, man, and take that time. It's a really busy world. We all got a lot of problems. Just slow down, go on a walk it out. It does a lot for your mental health.
Yeah, especially starting your day out like that. And we do it for 20 days. I mean, that's the habit kind of.
Oh, that's habit forming for
sure.
I
wouldn't want to do it just for like 5 and then it's like, nah, I mean, that's not enough. You know, if you're going to go for something like this, you got to really go for it. And like I said, if we fall on our face here and nobody shows up, then Tony, me and you are hanging out every morning at 6 a.m. I'll teach you the Bible. You teach me the Bible every other day. So, also, guys, I know we don't have a cam on Tony because we have no money. So
budget cuts.
So this is all free stuff. I mean, Tony, for some reason you had 3 phones for your work or something. So we're on iPhones. We're and the studio is given to us. We're using somebody else's studio. So if you guys want to support us, you're more than welcome to donate so we can actually buy a camera. That'd be cool.
That would be snazzy. Yeah. That would be snazzy.
Rather than iPhones, and maybe one day our own studio, so that things aren't changed up every time we come in here because somebody else's kids are playing in here and stuff. And we're like, all right, dude, where's the mics? But anyways, man, Mike, I appreciate you coming and sharing your story, man. Good catching up with you.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Yeah. This is an honor just to be a part of something like this. Never been asked to be on a podcast before. I'm usually the guy asking other people to do it. So this is really, really cool.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Nice. You got anything else going on you want to promote or anything to whoever's watching this?
No.
Okay.
No, not at the moment, man. Outside of, just try and be better, I guess. Look, I can only tell people my own experience. I can't preach to you, but it worked for me. I'm a normal person in the most respects possible. Middle class family, Army dad, stepmom works. I got a stepmom for one. I know there's a lot of people out there, got divorced in their lives. Like, you can make an impact, and you can be the generational change if that's what you want. But again, it all starts with you.
Yeah.
The result is not found in pills and powders and any of that stuff. It's really all about you showing up for yourself,
right,
and putting yourself in that community. And that applies to anybody trying to get sober. I've battled with that or any other stuff out there. I mean, you put yourself with the right people. Yeah. And it's kind of biblical again if I put myself around the right people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to say there's some good stuff in that book.
Well, February 3rd, we're giving people an opportunity to show up for themselves, to take the first step, towards it. So hopefully we can get some people out there. But I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to pray for you.
Thank you.
And then we'll skedaddle. All right. God, thank you for another great conversation. Lord, I'm just kind of on the edge of what may be, Lord, and we haven't posted any of this stuff, so it's kind of strange to record all this, but we knew that we needed to have some time to get after some of the things we want to get after. And so there's just a lot of uncertainty here, and I love that. I love following you and always just having to trust in your will and trust what you're doing. I appreciate that Mike's done that in his life in various ways, God, just being 15 and preaching and having impact like that. I thank you that you brought him through some of the struggles in his life, that he always gives you credit. And just for his marriage, Lord, I pray for his marriage as well, that you continue to bless them. And I thank you that they have that kind of bond to be able to work out together and be able to have hard conversations with each other, Lord. I love you. I hope that people show up to this thing. I hope that it's not me falling on my face. Here we go. So, trusting in you. Love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Love this podcast.
Thanks, brother. All right.